Oshinoko is a confusing anime. It's a denunciation of idol culture while also being a love letter to it. It's a show about fame, tragedy, revenge, and teenage reality dating dramas. It's comedic, cheesy, heartfelt, and dark all at the same time. It's Love Live, Code Geass, Gakkou Garashi, reincarnated as a slime, and Yasuga no Sora all in one, and let's not talk about that last one. And every episode is as shocking and daring as the next. Whether you love or hate this anime, you have to respect just how ambitious it is. And while I think the show as a whole is great, there was a particular arc that's mishandled so badly, it's offensive. I am, of course, talking about episodes 5 through 8 of the dating reality show arc, specifically episode 6 titled Ego Surfing. Within the span of episodes, the main storyline follows our protagonist, Aqua, who joins a reality dating show in order to get closer to his goal of killing his dad, who killed his mom, who also killed him. And I'm just starting to realize how weird the plot of this show is to people who might not have seen it. Anyways, one member of the show is Akane Kurokawa. She's best girl. Akane is a young actress who's struggling to maintain her presence and relevance. Pressured by her agency to make a bigger impact, she brought a sort of attack one of the main love interest vibe to the show that audiences don't really like. Of course, it was blown way out of proportion, and she received a huge amount of hate and death threats as a result, which sadly was probably one of the most realistic parts of the show. This would spiral out of control until she attempts to unalive herself, before being saved by our hero Aqua. After this incident, she returns to the show and all is basically well. Now, before diving into the issues that I have with this plot, there are some things that I should point out were rather good. I thought the way they portrayed the effects of cyberbullying on a teenager, and before you commented, yes, I've seen the tweet, and yes, it's funny, but cyberbullying is absolutely a terrible thing that many people face, and its negative effects, especially on young people, are massive. I've probably received more hate comments than 95% of the human population have, and fortunately, I've been on the receiving end of enough in real-life bullying so that it doesn't really have any effect on me. However, for most people who have yet to have their self-worth stripped away, it's been measured that things like this can happen. In fact, it did happen. The incident portrayed in Oshinoko was based directly on a real-life incident from a Japanese reality TV show titled Terrace House. You have to be awfully daring to address something as sensitive as this on an anime as big as Oshinoko, so even attempting this should be commended to a point. I thought the natural thought progression that she went through made a lot of sense. Between how she interacted with people close to her and the way she rationalized her position, the way the show portrayed the internal struggles of the character was handled in a believable way. While maybe not to the same extent, I think we've all been in a similar state in our walk of life, so you can definitely feel for the character. Now that we've addressed all that, I'd like to talk about my biggest gripe with Oshinoko. Everything up until the moment Akane is on the bridge is grounded, authentic, and handled delicately. I'd strictly argue that everything that the arc had built up to completely falls apart the moment Aqua saves Akane, which I know sounds really dark, but stay with me here. One of the most common issues with media that portrays self-harm and/or unalive is that it tends to be portrayed as an almost heroic act. Take 13 Reasons Why, for example. The character who commits unalive, which is shown in graphic detail, is practically deified after her death. It's shown as an almost noble and ultimately fruitful act, rather than what teenage unalive really is, horrific and pointless. Oshinoko doesn't glorify Akane's unalive attempt per se. In fact, I think it goes to the other end of the spectrum, which is completely trivializing it. So Aqua comes to the rescue at the very last moment to save Akane, sweeping her off her feet like some fairy tale story. Now, the intentional result of this obviously is twofold. It preserves an important main character for future storylines while also showing Aqua to be heroic and cool. The unintentional effect, however, is turning a powerful and important narrative about mental health and cyberbullying into an eye-rolling, tactless melodrama that makes everything preceding it weightless. Now, my question is, why does Aqua rescue Akane like this? Now, I have no problem with Akane surviving, but what even is the purpose of this moment with Aqua? Out of nowhere, his character complex changes from a ruthless though capable and charismatic enigma to a Prince Charming-like hero, saving the damsel in distress just in the nick of time in a spectacularly dramatic moment. It's weird, and it's bad, and it doesn't work in the story. This is just where my gripe with this arc starts, though. I was really hoping the next episode could wash out the bad taste in my mouth, but of course it was far worse. At the hospital, her friends visit her and immediately start blaming her for not telling them what she was going through and for how worried she made them. This is textbook victim blaming and is obviously wrong, yet it's not portrayed in a negative light in the slightest. In this situation, the obvious thing to do would be to show Aqua actually utilizing his past experience as a doctor — he was previously a doctor in case you forgot — in helping Akane with her depression and trauma. Yes, I know that psychologist and medical practitioner are two entirely different things, but there's reasonable overlap and it's fine to take some liberties. Instead, he provides minimal emotional support to Akane after her attempt and goes to make a video. On one hand, this is horribly irresponsible for an adult dealing with a child in crisis. On the other hand, gotta respect the content grind for real, for real. I'm not done with Aqua though. Based on what we know he actually did, there's something very troubling about his inaction up to that point. As a fully grown, well, in a way, adult with medical knowledge, he 100% was aware of the effects of the hate that she was receiving would have on her mental health, but waited until the moment that she actually made the attempt to give her any emotional support. What really got to me was the moment where Aqua confronts one of the crew members of that show and blames him for what happened to Akane. Now, the argument that the showrunners shouldered some of the blame for what happened isn't off the mark. Some diligence on their part, for example adding a disclaimer to not harass the talents, would have been the responsible thing to do, and certainly putting out a statement once it had started would have done a lot in terms of minimizing damage and absolutely should have been done. But that's not the argument that Aqua makes, nor is it directed to the right person. Aqua effectively shames the director who, in all likelihood, had absolutely no part in talent safety and was simply helping to create a compelling television narrative, as was the main and communal goal of the project. Dealing with the audience reactions would have been the responsibility of the PR and safety team, so it makes zero sense to paint the director in a bad light. Imagine being in his shoes and seeing how a teenager on your show made an attempt due to the failure of the company to protect their talents, and someone directly saying that you are the one to blame for it. That's downright manipulative and unimaginably cruel, and would likely cause a huge amount of long-lasting anguish for someone who doesn't deserve to be ridden with even more guilt. It still amazes me that Aqua pulls out the mind-boggling line, what kind of adult chooses not to protect a kid? Since the answer to that question is you, apparently, considering you did nothing to help Akane when you darned well suspected that she was going through an emotional crisis and only intervened at the last and most dramatic time. Now, all of this I'd say are examples of Oshi being generally irresponsible in portraying mental health crises and attempts, but the real trivialization of mental health comes directly after this. Obviously, going through something like that would be indescribably traumatic. In Oshi, however, Akane seemingly just shrugs it off and almost immediately returns to the exact environment which brought about all this trauma. Yes, the support video would have helped, but I'm sure we all know that overcoming depression and trauma is a lengthy and arduous process, and the show pretending that it wouldn't be is downright irresponsible. Some may argue that that wouldn't make for interesting subject matter, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. Some of the best series like Frieren and Berserk are stories that are about healing and moving past trauma. I'd even argue that it would fit very well with the themes of Oshi, considering the kind of trauma that Aqua and Ruby went through. Oshi is notable because it's an anime that's really built different. It takes a look at common tropes from a unique angle and touches on topics that other anime wouldn't dare to. It's absolutely the kind of anime that we need to see more of, and is part of a movement within the art form to show that it can have the maturity to really be taken seriously. Akane's storyline, unfortunately, fell short of that. I really commend the show for tackling sensitive subjects, but the thing with sensitive subjects is that they're sensitive. They need to be handled with tact and care because otherwise they make light of issues that hold special significance, or worse, downplay their severity. Oshi both triumphs and fails in this regard. Ultimately, the reality dating show arc is a major disappointment in what would have otherwise been a near flawless execution of bold, significant storytelling, but it by no means ruins the series. I'm still excited for season 2 and can't wait to see if they can do better. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to listen to my content creation story. I started making videos back in 2017, and since then I've learned that this is absolutely what I would love to do with my life. Starting this summer after I graduate, I'm hoping to become a full-time content creator. If you love anime, please consider subscribing to the channel. There will be many more videos like this that explore the beautiful art form of Japanese animation. And if you want to be a part of the absolute best community of anime and VTuber fans, be sure to join the VTuber Health Discord, link in description. and I'd like to take a moment to thank all of my Patreon supporters, namely MinorDude369. As always, thank you for watching.
Anyway, $4 a pound.